I think we need to have a debate about the age of consent, along with the debate about what we're doing to stop the sexualization and pornographication of childhood, because our young people are having sex at earlier and earlier ages. Between a quarter and a third have had sex by the time they're 16, and it may be higher than that. That data's 10 years old. There's new data due out in a couple of weeks' time, which is likely to show not just more sex among under 16s, but different types of sexual behaviour as well being prevalent. This is driven in part by earlier puberty, which we know about. Young people today are reaching puberty earlier than we did and our grandparents did. So that's part of the driver. But the sexualization of childhood with fashion, with music, with pornography being accessible and accessed by young teenagers, the social media, the Twitters and all the other social media that they're into, means that they're in a very sexual environment. Now, we either address that or we have to face the consequences. And one of the options would be to lower the age of consent so that we can begin to deal rationally with all these young people who are getting involved in relationships at an early age and who may feel inhibited from seeking help, and who the adult advisors, like teachers in the classroom, may be confused about what they can and cannot discuss with the youngsters that are in their care. I think this is a safeguarding issue for us as adults. I think we're failing our young people. And, the headline on the front page of the Sunday Times doesn't do justice to the full interview that I gave earlier this week.
The headline, just for those who haven't seen it, just says call to drop legal age of sex to 15. I think one of the things that's confused some of our listeners this morning is you're talking about the increasing sexualisation of younger children. And they're saying, well, hang on a minute, if you drop the legal age to 15, then more children will be encouraged to have sex. I suppose the knee-jerk reaction will be to up the age, so we try and put a stop to this.
Yeah, and that's understandable if you're not aware of the facts about these things. I mean, in other European countries, Scandinavia and the Mediterranean countries, France, Spain, the age of consent is less than 16.
Yeah, but is that backward or more forward thinking than us?
Well, if you take the examples of Sweden and Denmark and of Holland, where they have lower ages of consent, they have later age at which youngsters start having sex, and they have lower teenage pregnancy rates. I mean, they have an environment in which young people are able to talk about what's going on in their lives.
Right, I'm just going to bring Sonia in now, but effectively you're saying, to generalise, you're saying there's a group of kids aged 14 to 15 who are having sex, but society is just not addressing their needs because it doesn't want to even admit that they're doing it.
It's a substantial proportion.
OK. Sonia Poulton, hello.
Morning.
Hi, Sonia.
Well, I agree with John in one aspect. We are living in a highly sexualised society, a subject that has disturbed me since my daughter was 3. She's now 16, and I've been writing and broadcasting about it extensively because it is disturbing and it does need addressing. But to address it is not to lower the age of consent, which is an entirely different matter altogether. Now, the problem about lowering the age of consent, to me, it's far less about the child and far more about other agendas that are going on. A 16-year-old is barely ready for a sexual relationship, much less any other age. I certainly wouldn't consider higher in the age because I think that is taking it the other way. But what we need to look at, absolutely, is the sexualisation of society. Now, the problem is, for about the last 30, 40 years, there have been a number of focus groups who have made it their absolute business to work consistently to lower the age of consent. And that includes like the paedophile information exchange and onwards. This plays completely into their hands. And what we need to be doing is protecting children, not effectively handing them over so it makes them more vulnerable and more accessible to paedophiles, which is my great concern. Because really what we need to be showing children is more about love and commitment.
But Sonia, isn't it
to kind of give it up at an early age? No.
Isn't a paedophile going to prey on a child anyway?
A paedophile will prey on a child anyway, but look at the situation with Savile and the various other people who have been convicted. Yeah, they would not then be convicted, would they? So it's an open season. It's like, okay, I can do this and I won't be convicted. So yes, a paedophile will do it anyway, but we are condoning it and we're consenting to it if we do that. And one of the other arguments,
Sonia, just hang on. Sonia, sorry to interrupt you. I just want to put that point to John. Then you can put your other point as well, because Jane in Richmond's texted in as well, John, on this. She says the law is not applied to children having underage sex with each other, and children are able to access contraception below the age of 16. She says the age of consent law is there to protect children from adults who want to have sex with them. Paedophiles will be the main beneficiaries of any legislation lowering the age of consent. What do you say? What do you say, John, to that argument?
Well, I think to put Jimmy Savile into this is a complete red herring. I mean, Savile was a psychopath who was exploiting very young women. I mean, you know, and this goes to the roots of some of the stuff that was going on in the BBC at the time, and that's a different issue. I think what I would put to you is that even though the social services and the police might say that they adopt a flexible approach when these kind of issues come to their attention with 15-year-olds or 14-year-olds or whatever, a 15 or 14-year-old girl who's doing something that she believes to be illegal is less likely to seek help and advice. And what we need to create is a climate where young people are able to seek help and advice. And I'm afraid I disagree with your caller's point about 16-year-olds not being ready for sex. I mean, you know, a lot of young people are in caring sexual relationships at 15, 16. And that's the reality of everyday life and family life.
Sonia, I can hear you laughing, but is this because you are the parent of a 16-year-old, Sonia? My kids are now 17 and 19, and you don't want to imagine them possibly in that kind of a relationship.
No, it's not that at all, because what would be lovely is if we could suddenly have a snapshot of my relationship with my daughter Ed on this radio, and everybody would see how wonderfully open it is. There's absolutely nothing that my daughter doesn't discuss with me, and vice versa. So it isn't that. It is about protecting them. And there is this idea that, I mean, the Savile thing is not a red herring because, John, with all respect, how much do you know about paedophiles in the system? Because I know a whole lot, and I have been looking into it, you know, incredibly so, and very far-reaching, and we are talking about an extensive, all-encompassing problem. So, you know, before you say it's a red herring, please make sure that you absolutely know your fact, because as far as I'm concerned, you are complicit when you start to dismiss how extensive paedophilia is in our country. So, but the other thing is, which is a really important point, is this whole idea that contraception is not accessible for children under 16, which is an absolute nonsense, because 13-year-olds can go to the doctors now. They can have a pill without their parents' consent or knowledge. My daughter received condoms at school at 13. So it's an absolute ridiculous statement to say that, you know, it's difficult to, you know, and will make it easier for them and all of that. It's already easy.
Okay, we
need to refocus our energies on showing children about love and commitment.
Okay, let's just talk about some of the other issues here that our texters have raised as well. John, we can't enforce the age of 16. What makes anyone think 15 will be any easier? And plenty of people are suggesting, too many to read out actually, suggesting, look, if we lower it to 15, then what next? 14 and 13 and so on. So, John, what's your view?
You know, in raising this issue, I've wanted us to have this debate, which has clearly started. There is an argument that by changing the age of consent to 15, we might be able to draw a line in the sand about the younger ones that are getting involved in sex as well. It's my view that we've got to be serious about tackling the huge money-making that's going on around commercial sex and on the web, and the Visa card.
Agree. I would support you fully on that, John.
Yeah, the Visa card companies that make money out of people buying pornography, the banks.
Yes.
There's a huge amount of commercial interest in this. And we had the Prime Minister taking an interest in it a few weeks ago, and it's here and gone in 24 hours. You know, it needs to be tackled at that end. What I'm saying is if we don't tackle it at that end, if we don't reduce these pressures and the sexualisation of children, then maybe we need to lower the age of consent. But there are arguments in their own right for that, in order to enable them to be able to get the advice and access to help that they need. I mean, we've got significant increases in chlamydia infection rates in younger teenagers. We've got the teenage pregnancy rates in older teenagers have gone down dramatically over the last 20 years. It's been a big success story. But the teenage pregnancy rates that are going up are in 14 and 15-year-olds. And
it will be in 9 and 10-year-olds if we lower the age of consent. That is not the solution. Now, I absolutely agree we need an adult debate about it. We seriously do. But you're far from raising it, trust me, because I've been arguing this for a few years now. There's a whole stream of people behind you who are actively working for their own agendas, and of course I'm not saying that about you, but for their own agendas to lower that age of consent. And we need to see that these are very separate issues. The sexualisation of our children is abhorrent, and we should address it very much so as parents and as a community of people, but it is absolutely entirely unrelated to the age of consent, and the age of consent must stay at 16.